Hey guys, Victor here, and today we're going to be doing another discussion video with the focus, of course, being Tengu plant, in case you couldn't tell from the title of the video. But it's going to be a little different because we're going to be focusing on side decking, which is something that I've actually never really touched upon in the Tengu plant format, and it's just as important as, like, when building your main deck, just because side decking will impact, help you win those seemingly unwinnable matchups and make the game somewhat easier for you to handle. Now, this isn't going to be like top 10. It's just going to be 10 general cards that I think you should consider putting in your side deck. So there isn't going to be like a certain ranking or anything. It's just 10 really good cards that I think you can include in your side deck. So with that out of the way, let's just jump straight into the video. So the first card I want to talk about is Doom Caliber Knight. Doom Caliber Knight's honestly like a really weird card, and it's somewhat difficult to use because its effect is whenever a monster effect is activated that includes you or your opponent, you contribute this card. Well, not can, it's mandatory, so you have to attribute it and then you negate that monster's effect. So it can very easily backfire, but like the benefits that it adds are honestly pretty high, especially in helping you deal with key threats like Reborn Tengu and cards that float like Sangan, things of that nature. And in addition to that, it is a 1900 beat stick, which is very popular at this format just because it helps you trade with cards like Thunder King Ryo, and like I said, it does stop Reborn Tengu, which is 1700, so you get rid of that one and then it doesn't float into another one. But yeah, a lot of the times you're going to be seeing this in like the more slower paced decks or like trap heavy decks, such as like Hero Beat, TG Stun, if they don't want to just rely solely on Skill Drain, Rock Stun, and even like Chaos variants, because this is a dark monster, so it does help feed your Chaos engine. And not every Chaos deck is balls to the wall insane combo heavy. Sometimes they like playing a lot more of a slower methodical game in order to try and win that way. And Doom Caliber Knight helps provide you with that type of avenue. So yeah, Doom Caliber Knight, solid card, not the greatest, but it gets the job done when it needs to. Now, the second card I want to talk about today is Mind Crush, which, similar to Doom Caliber Knight, is somewhat difficult to use just because, you're not always going to know what's in your opponent's hand, but there are a lot of decks that search or take advantage of cards to be put into their hand that can make this card really effective. Just off the top of my head, right? You have Heroes with Stratos searching Alias or E-Call searching Stratos. You have Agents where normal summon Earth into Venus or Hyperion if they play the field spell. Pot of Duality will pretty much always, add one of the top three cards to their hand, and that's a viable target for you to hit with Mind Crush. Even something like Frogs, right? Where they want to commit all their resources to the graveyard, usually. They bounce back with Swap Frog. You can preemptively try and call something like a Caius or a Ryza if it'll ruin your board. Like, there's so many cool uses that you can use with Mind Crush. And to top it all off, during this era of Yu-Gi-Oh!, Mind Crush would give you free knowledge of your opponent's hand unless you hit something that's, say you activate Mind Crush and you call Elemental Hero Stratos and they discard it. Obviously, there's no way for your opponent to have more than one Stratos, so you wouldn't get to look at their hand. However, if you call something like Elemental Hero Neo's Alias, you'll be able to get free public knowledge of your opponent's hand because of the fact that there's no guarantee that they don't have triple Alias in there, unless they're all in the graveyard or all summoned onto the field, But yeah, little things like that can go a long way in helping you win a lot, so Mind Crush is definitely something that you should be considering for your side deck. Now, the third card on our list is going to be Royal Decree. This is just, mainly for the very, very trap-heavy decks, which there are a decent amount in this format, whether it's Hero Beat, TG Stun, things of that nature that just set 3 to 5 cards at pretty much any given time to try and, outstun you or lock you out of playing the game. Royal Decree will in turn stun them and prevent them from playing the game, It negates every trap activation besides itself, so it's a pretty strong card to say the least. Just be aware that there is a lot of counterplay, especially because cards like Mystical Space Typhoon are at 3 in this format. So say, for example, you're getting pretty greedy thinking you're safe behind Decree, so you commit like a bunch of resources to the field and your opponent flips Torrential. You think, cool, I have Decree up, no big deal, right? Then they just chain something like Mystical Space Typhoon to get rid of the Decree. You have no way to answer the Torrential Tribute itself, and yeah, things just get really bad really fast. So even though this card is very easy to use, you have to be aware that there are situations where it's not going to be the be-all end-all in winning the matchup. And with that, that's Decree, and now we can move on to the next card. Now, the fourth card on our list is going to be very similar to Royal Decree in the fact that it is Trap Stun. Now, while Trap Stun only negates traps until the end of the turn, there's a lot of very different theory or uses behind something like Trap Stun over Royal Decree, because typically if you're using Trap Stun, it's going to be to guarantee that you can OTK your opponent that turn, And even then, like, there's other decks that make more use out of Trap Stun than they would of Royal Decree. Take Frogs, for example, right? Frogs are not going to be able to play Royal Decree because then they won't be able to bring back their Treeborn Frog during the standby phase. However, with Trap Stun, you just flip your Trap Stun during the draw phase, you turn off all your opponent's traps, you bring back your Treeborn Frog, and you just combo off. And even then, this card also has like a lot more uses in trap heavy decks, right? Where, say for example, you're playing Hero Beat and you're like into your early, mid, late game, whatever. You have a bunch of resources in the grave. You flip a Trap Stun, which is way more beneficial to you than something like Royal Decree, and then you go for like your double Miracle Fusion play with like another monster, whatever. You try to OTK your opponent and say you're unsuccessful, no biggie. You got all your monsters out safely, and all your traps are pretty much going to be coming back online for the next turn. So, you know, it's basically just about like what you prefer, what type of deck you're playing, but Trap Stun is just as valid as Royal Decree in a lot of situations. So with that, that's Trap Stun, and now we can move on to the next card. Now for the fifth card, we're going to be switching over to monsters for a bit, and the monster I want to talk about is Snowman Eater. So Snowman Eater is honestly like a really, really solid side card in some matchups. Obviously, it's terrible against decks like Agents because they have cards like Gachi Gachi Kentetsu, which can protect themselves. Master Hyperion just comes down on the field and pops this before it even gets its effect off. However, this is not for those decks. This is more for, you know, the slower based, set one, set another couple cards past type of decks, like Heroes, Tengu Plant, you know, things of that nature, where they have like 1900 beat sticks or 1700 beat sticks in the form of Tengu that you can just set Snowman Eater against, and they have difficulties outing it. This card really shines in Hero Beat or against Hero Beat just because it trades with Neos Alias. So, you know, they go Alias, attack Snowman Eater, destroy Alias. So they lose out on their potential Gemini Spark target. If they have Hero Blast, they have Hero Blast, but it's no big deal. You made them waste a card on a Snowman Eater that's basically just a brick at this point. And it's also really effective at helping you deal with cards like Thunder King Ryo, which is literally everywhere in this format. So yeah, Snowman Eater, really solid card. Just do not put it in against like decks like Agents or I guess Lightsworn if you run into it. But yeah, definitely consider Snowman Eater in your side deck. For card number 6, I'm going to be talking about a spell card that a lot of people wouldn't really understand the value of unless they played during this format, and that card is Soul Taker. So Soul Taker targets an opponent's monster, you destroy it, and then you give them 1,000 life points. So you may be thinking, what's so good about this card? Why would I play it over something like Smashing Ground? Well, first off, like I said, it targets instead of just blindly hitting a monster with the highest defense. So that's a plus. And on top of that, it causes cards to miss timing. And that's honestly an aspect that's pretty much lost in Modern Yu-Gi-Oh! As cards never miss timing anymore. But this format has a lot of missing the timing, and the most prominent example would have to be Elemental Hero The Shining, which, you know, hero players are literally everywhere. I'm, fortunately or unfortunately, depending on your opinion, one of them. And what they would do is you activate Soul Taker, you destroy Elemental Hero The Shining, and then after Elemental Hero The Shining gets destroyed, you give them 1,000 life points. So because Elemental Hero The Shining's destruction is not the very last thing to happen, it unfortunately, or fortunately again, depending on your standpoint, misses the timing. So that means it won't be able to give back any resources. So, you know, this card honestly has like a lot of potential, but I can understand why you wouldn't really want to play it, but you should definitely consider it if you know, have a lot of trouble against decks like Heroes. But yeah, Soul Taker, solid card. For card number 7, this is a card that's no stranger to even competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! Or in modern formats, and that's DD Crow. So DD Crow, you know, discard it, banish one card out of your hand, and it's a quick effect. So that means you can use it during your turn or your opponent's turn. And that versatility that it offers you is honestly huge because it lets you control the tempo against decks like Agents by getting rid of maybe potential chaos pieces or just agents themselves like Venus or Earth, so they have a harder time summoning Hyperion. If you're playing against Tengu Plant, you can hit key cards like Pot of Avarice, Glow Bulb, Spore, make them waste their effects and lose even more resources against like trap heavy decks like Heroes, right? Where you think something like this would be worthless. If they activate Miracle Fusion, you drop a DD Crow and you hit the card that matters the most. Frogs, right? Treeborn Frog. I can just go on and on and on about the impact that DD Crow can have in this metagame because it's just that good of a card. So yeah, if you take anything away from this video, it should be that DD Crow should more than likely, honestly, be in your side in some shape or form just because it's that good at helping you deal with key threats. So with that, that's card number 7, and now we can move on to card number 8. Card number 8 on our list is going to be something that's pretty popular in retro formats, especially like Edison format, and that's going to be Light Imprisoning Mirror. This card, fantastic, because a lot of the decks in this format are light based or have like some kind of light engine revolving around them. You know, Agents, one of the best decks, is entirely light, so flipping a Light Imprisoning Mirror can just sometimes win the game straight up. Light Sworns are still around every now and then, so Light Imprisoning Mirror is fantastic against them. It helps you deal with like the annoying boss monsters like Hyperion, BLS, you know, things of that nature. You can try Shadow Imprisoning Mirror, I guess, but I think of the two, Light Imprisoning is definitely a lot more impactful. Like, there's just so many decks that revolve around light monsters at this point that you kind of have to be like a fool to not be playing at least 2 copies of Light Imprisoning Mirror in your side deck. So yeah, fantastic card. Definitely recommend unless you're playing a light deck, because then you're just going to be beating yourself. And with that, now we can move on to card number 9. Card number 9 is something that's actually gained a lot of popularity as people have revisited the format, and that's Soul Release. So much like DD Crow, the concept is the same. You're basically just banishing cards out of your opponent's graveyard and maybe even your own graveyard in order to help, you know, control the tempo of the game. And let's just say decks in this format rely on their graveyard heavily in order to win the game. It doesn't matter. Hero Beat needs heroes in their grave for Miracle Fusions to resolve. Tengu Plant has like a million. The graveyard is basically like a second deck because they have like a million cards in their graveyard that can activate. Agents need cards in their graveyard to pop with Hyperion or just to summon it a lot more easily. I can just go on and on and on, and this card is just, it's really just insane. I cannot stress this enough. This card does so much and can straight up just win games on its own just by resolving one time. So yeah, I definitely would recommend at least citing 2 of these because it's just that phenomenal of a card. And now we can finally move on to the final card in the list. Now, the final card in this list is probably one of my favorite monsters just because of how versatile it is, and that card is Cyber Dragon. Now, I don't know if you've ever watched any of my deck profiles, but if you have, you'll notice that one card that I almost always include in the deck is Chimera Tech Fortress Dragon, just because of my strong hatred of machine decks. And in order to summon Chimera Tech Fortress Dragon, that means you have to be siding at least Cyber Dragon in order to, you know, contact away their resources and basically just try and push for game, which, you know, does happen somewhat often. However, Cyber Dragon is a lot more than just something that can, you know, body machine decks. Just because it's so versatile in the way that it can be used, especially when you're going second. Take, for example, Thunder King Ryo, right? You summon a Cyber Dragon, your opponent has to destroy it with their Thunder King Ryo, otherwise they're just going to lose resources continuously, or it's just so threatening on the field, especially against so many decks, just because 2100 attack for free, it runs over everything. Alias, Tengu, Thunder King, whatever, you name it. Like, it's so good. And not to mention that it's a light monster, so in like chaos related decks, you know, it helps feed your chaos engine even more by giving you way more light monster fodder. Being able to be a free special summon means you can synchro summon with it a lot more easily too, just because you haven't used up your normal summon. Like, this card just does so much. And I love this card. Easily one of my favorite side deck options whenever it's actually decent in the format. And with that, that's the video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys next time. See ya!